本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。What's good, Internet? It's Tuesday, March 16th, and you are listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 380. I'm your host, Austin Walker. I'm joined today by Rob Zachney.
Good morning.
And Ricardo Contreras.
Hello.
And it's just us today, which means no one can stop us from doing the podcast the way we wanna. And that means I'm immediately going to talk about the hottest game of the week, The Evil Within 2, which I put like 4 hours into last night instead of sleeping. It was a mistake.
It feels rude. This feels... Patrick's not here.
Yep. No, because he'd be judging me if I actually did this and he was here.
Oh, wow.
Because it would be like, why did you play that and not play something else, Austin? He would say that.
I think Patrick will always approve a horror game, though.
I guess that's true. Even if it's years old. That game's all right. Rob, you should play that game. You know, I feel like you know, with all the time that we have,
is that
something
the one
really
that
interesting about it?
I was going to ask, is that the one that didn't make it onto the whole big...
Interestingly enough, that is not. I installed the one I installed Evil Within 1 on Game Pass. Because, you know, I just want to get caught up. Like, as I understand it, Evil Within 2, it's like, whoa, I've got some like parental grief, like weird emotional issues going on. But I need to know the origin story for that grief.
But the thing that Evil Within 2 has that I think is super fascinating is formal, which is like, or structural, which is it becomes a hub-based game. It becomes like a semi-open world game in which you're in a like corrupted suburban community that's filled with these zombies that do talk sometimes, which is strange. They're very like people. They're like people twisted more than they're like undead, right? It's like, oh, this person, you see this one priest at some point, like given to his deepest guilt and then become a sort of violent, wrathful monster after that. So maybe there is some sort of emotional thing happening. Who could say? But the thing that's so fascinating to me about it is you are in this kind of open space. Again, I say eventually because the first like 90 minutes is a very linear, straightforward. Maybe it's more like the first hour. I was editing a podcast while playing it, which means like pausing to be like, oh, I gotta fix this cough. I have to, there's too much dead air here, so let me pause. So who knows how long the intro, maybe it's 10 minutes long, and it just felt like an hour to me. Anyway, once you get through that intro, you're in this kind of open space that is like a bunch of suburban houses and, you know, a grocery store and like an auto parts store and some other stuff, right? And town hall and all that. And spread across that map are interiors of these buildings, and not every building is something you go into. But it's almost as if you're in a sort of a landscape of various types of horror video game that you then dive into depending on where you end up. So like, you know, the when you're outside of the grocery store and you get the crossbow for the first time that has the electricity bolts, and there's like, you know, a broken fire hydrant, so there's water on the ground. You're in like BioShock, like, can I set up a cool trap to take care of like 4 of these zombies? When you're, you know, over in a there's an entire thing where you use computers to go to different parts of the town. You like matrix your way through, because it's all happening in a simulator. It's all happening in the Matrix is the thing to understand about this game.
Wait,
you like jack into the Matrix at the beginning of this game.
So it's sort of like that thing they throw away in the Matrix Reloaded, where they're like, you know, in the Matrix, like all the occult shit could be totally real. And for a second, 100%. You're like, fuck yes. And then they're like, but we're not going to talk about that.
Well, that's clearly because the Matrix starts as a game of Mage the Ascension, the White Wolf game. The technocrats are very obviously the agents are very clearly the technocrats from Mage. Anyway, so they
it's just set up
over
for the Animatrix, you know, all the ghosts,
the ghost story. That one ghost story, yeah. It's called Ghost, yeah. There's a bunch of stuff in the Animatrix that feels like it's on the verge of supernatural. Anyway, but you go and do, you know, one of these other rooms, and it becomes very Resident Evil 4, very much just like a high tension action horror game. And then I went into 1. I was like, this game's all right. This game's not that scary. I'm happy to be playing it at 3 a.m. Then I went into 1, and it was like it was a haunted house, and it was like I found a journal from a lady that was like, hey, you know, there's these monsters outside, but they're not able to get in my house. But I have felt it get uncomfortably cold in here, and I'm hearing things, and I feel like things aren't where they're supposed to be. I'm like, okay, this is a ghost story. And then you get brought into, you like read her journal, and it transports you into some sort of facility, a hospital, who could say. It might be the hospital from the first game. I don't know enough about the first game. Rob, maybe you beat me.
I'll give you an update on that.
Yeah,
next week.
and you know, you're like locked in a room, and there's like a series of rooms, and there's a giant, ghastly woman with like black appendages hovering around her. I didn't stay and get a good look because I had to like sneak around her while she was humming a lullaby, not only in the game, but through my PS5 controller, which was tied to proximity. The closer I was to her, the louder it was on my controller, which is like a very spooky way of like, oh, she's coming close. She's right here. And you know, you have to find the key card and find the exit. And it's like, that's a completely different type of horror experience from the like shoot 'em up stuff, the RE4 stuff. And that's such a fascinating way to like lay out your horror vibes. You know, I think about other games that have these sorts of other horror games that have larger spaces like this versus that more constrained linear stuff. And it's normally just the case that that's just like, okay, we're in the mode we're in. And you think about the Resident Evil games post 4, I guess pre-7, post 4. And those are games where you're like, okay, I'm moving through sometimes large spaces. The villages and mansions of those games are like, you know, sizable. And there's secrets to find and stuff like that. It's not like they're not there's not exploration happening. But what there isn't is this like rapid mode switch between. It's almost like a little micro anthology in a sense. Where you're like, okay, what am I going to get in this corner of the map? What type of modem are we going to be, or what type of mode are we going to be in? I almost said modem. I mean, we're going in these computers, so what type of modem am I going to be in? So that's, you know, that's a fun thing. Also, it's just like, it is a weird blend of like Inception and high horror, because way the map bends in on itself and all that shit, and a lot of it is that sort of emotional. Whatever. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, I was also just a little bit curious, like, so a game I love is Fear, but a problem with Fear is that, like, things can only be so scary once you're like, I'm just going to unload a clip into these guys.
Yes.
You said, I have a lightning arrow.
Yeah, but I only had like 2 of them, and I ran out real quick, and then there was... The thing that literally happened in that sequence was, I was like, I'm going to get 4 of these motherfuckers lined up in that puddle. And I did, and I shot them with a lightning arrow, and they went zap, zzz, and they fell over. And then they got up and immediately climbed over the barrier at me.
Classic
and apparently,
zombies.
I should have just used that opportunity to go past them and, either knock them out while they were being electrocuted, shoot them in the head while that was happening, or loot the shit around them and get out. And instead, I was like, I got them. We're good. It was an extremely funny payoff. So yeah, I will say that, like, at this point in the game, I'm at that point of sort of the survival horror game where, unless you're in a section where they're feeding you ammo, I do not have much ammo. You can't carry a lot of ammo. One of the upgrades you end up getting is ammo pouches. I just got my first pistol ammo pouch that raised the amount of ammo I could carry from 20 to 26. And so, well, I'm only ever going to have 26 bullets right now. That's not a lot of bullets when even the raw zombie takes 2 headshots. And they're fucking darting around. It's one of those. It's one of those things where it's like, I'm going to miss a lot. I might get 2 zombies with 20 bullets, or maybe I'll get 3 or 4. Yeah, it depends on if I get the drop on them or if they're like a stronger one or whatever. But anyway, I think that game is doing all right. I'm enjoying it. It's probably not going to usurp Dragon Quest XI as my bedtime game because of the way I'm a coward. But yeah, I wanted to do my Evil Within 2 check-in, let people know we followed up on that. I know a lot of people were curious about that game 4 years ago or whatever when it came out. So
4 years ago, really?
That's I believe that's right. It might be more. Cado, Evil Within 2. Here's how I did it last time. I did a search for Waypoint.
I think that might have been
to see if Patrick wrote about it. And what I got was a tweet. Okay, so yeah, October 13th, 2017 Patrick does a tweet. Nobody's going to play The Evil Within 2, and it's a bummer. It's what the original game should have been. So there's a piece here on the site.
Speaking of the original game, Rob.
I think Rob just installed it.
Oh, okay.
You've not
you played
dove in yet, right?
Yeah, no, I got distracted by a Slay the Spire run.
Ain't that the way?
Yeah.
I was like, I'll just pop into this real quick while it installs.
A full night later. Well, so that's how the defect works. How are you feeling about Slay the Spire these days?
Oh, I think it's just one of the greatest games I've ever played. Like, I mean, what do I like? How do you know that card game that like instantly became one of the best games of like its generation? How are you liking it? Liking it quite a bit, Austin. It is so much fun. Seeing the different ways. There's like the broader conceptual choices you can make about your deck, where it's like, okay, here's the way this deck is going to function and structure. But then there's also the like bonsai, like, how am I going to prune this? But you kind of have to anticipate. Yeah. You have to do anticipatory pruning, where it's like, this is a good card I am being offered, but it does not fit what I am doing. And in a lot of situations, it will just be a bad draw. And so even though this card is awesome, I need to make sure that like I continue to play to the strengths that I'm developing. And that coupled, but then also the fact that you still have to hedge your bets a little bit. Like, you have to be, okay, how can I produce defense on short notice if I need to? How can I cycle cards through my hand? All that stuff is awesome. And there's so many ways to get better at it. And then so many trapdoors that open beneath you, just as you're like, I'm really crushing this. I think I figured this out.
Totally. All right, we should talk about a game that actually came out this week. And not two different games that came out at least 3 years ago each. So, y'all want to talk about Star Dynasties? A game that might not even be on anyone's map who's listening? That's probably not true. There's probably like the diehard grand
It's
strategy
already
folks.
got a weird, like, certainly in the Three Moves Ahead chat, like, all the Three Moves Ahead people are like, hey, Star Dynasties, this is, hey, like, I know the Space 4Xs can be a little bit played out, but, like, this is really good. And it does seem really good.
Pretty fucking good. Yeah. It is a 4X. It's hard to even, it's not a 4X. Well, it's eluding. I don't think it is. I guess you're expanding, but you're not exploiting, really. I mean, you're exploiting in other ways, but you're not doing the thing that in the world 4X, exploit means to gather resources and to deforest worlds or
you levy
places.
Taxes? That's a resource?
You do levy taxes.
I think this is closer to like the grand strategy definition that Paradox has carved out, especially because it's obviously cribbing a lot of Crusader Kings ideas, but with a really well executed thematic wrapper. And this sounds so much easier than it is to do in practice.
Dude,
like Paradox couldn't really do it with Stellaris. The developer of Crusader Kings made Stellaris.
Well, and that's, I think, part of the appeal of Star Dynasties is it very much feels like the response to Paradox not just making CK in space. I think a lot of people like me who liked Crusader Kings were like, I cannot wait for them to do a sci-fi Crusader Kings that is, dynastic or built around heroes and not heroes, but characters, right? And character interactions. And Stellaris just wasn't that at launch, right? It's a 4X game more than a grand strategy game. It's a 4X game, but from people who understand the scale of grand strategy games and who allow you to play that game in a way that is about continuation, not necessarily about complete conquest, or that conquest feels like the conquest of a grand strategy game because it takes so long and it's not as much about like the sort of like way that 4X encounters kind of come to a head. And Star Dynasties feels like the response. It's like, no, I'm going to make a game. We're going to make a game in which there are family lineages and people backstabbing each other and drama and grievances in the way that you want from one of these.
It's really smart. Like, before you even hit the splash screen, you get the briefing on like what this universe is. And here's another major difference between this and a 4X. 4Xs are often like blank slate games where it's like you start from here's your tiny little village or planet or whatever, and from here you just ink blot expand outward, looking for the most resource rich places. Star Dynasties, before you ever get to a menu, is like, hey, so here's the deal. Space Empire rose, but they accidentally destroyed Earth. So they have all this technology, they have this far-flung space empire, but it's all gone to shit. And so now it's just this feudal system in a decaying order.
Yeah, they are all reliant on Earth still for key technologies and stuff. And so like one of the first things you learn is there are planets, there are star systems you can't do anything with. You don't have like colonization technology. You don't have world ships or what the fuck ever. Yeah. So too bad. This is not that game. You're not going to go terraform the world to make it more like your people.
Instead, you're going to try to like yenta together like your daughter and a neighboring duke and be like, haha, now we will grow strong. But then you might also discover that maybe your daughter isn't your daughter. And
right.
Yeah.
The one thing. Well, just the one thing that is like the only moment where you're kind of expanding in that way of like conquering new territories, if somebody fucks up enough that they have to abandon a planet, right? That's the one thing. It's like, oh, I have enough money that I can pay enough people to restart the technology on this planet that had been abandoned, and that's how you can gain new star systems that way. But like that's the only
conquering,
bit.
Right?
Right. Like I was just
actually.
That is the only like uninhabited land sort of grab that you can make in this game. It doesn't happen that often. At least I played like 5 hours of it, and it happened once, and it got snapped up by somebody else way before I had anywhere near enough money.
Well, so that's the other thing that is. Go ahead, Rob.
No, I was just going to say, like, one of my touchstones for space opera or like space politics. Remember the opening act of Dune? And still my favorite part of all those books. Like there's a direction that is hinted at in Dune where like, cause the tragedy of Dune is you come in at the end of a more interesting story than Dune is really that series is going to tell. But there's this moment where, you know, the Atreides family has just been given the keys to the strategically crucial planet of Arrakis, the place that produces all the spice. And there's this like dinner where the new Duke is meeting all the stakeholders, basically, or all the people he knows are stakeholders on Arrakis. And his young son, Paul, is going to be the hero, just is watching all this unfold and like picking up the undercurrents in the room and the dynamics of like, okay, what are the interests being served here? What is behind every single statement people are making? And it's this really like exciting moment because you like, especially if you're a kid and you're reading it, but it's getting at this notion of like separating intention from words. Like in the text, you have a character interrogating subtext. And this is something a lot of 4X games can't bring across because they don't have the narrative chops and because they're very much like what you see is what you get. They're not really about intention. They're about like go to the gold planet and get the gold and use your gold to make starships. And then the starships, like once you got enough of them, you just go crush house. What I like, one of the things I really dig about Star Dynasties is that in addition to the Crusader Kings type stuff where it's about measuring relationships and like managing family and dynastic connections, I want to talk real quickly about the way it handles fleet battles, because I think this is actually one of its really smart choices.
Yeah.
We've all played a million games where you just select your fleet and you send your fleet to the enemy space, like space station or star system, and a big battle ensues.
You can see us doing this every Stellaris stream. You can see exactly what our emotional resonance with these moments is.
So Star Dynasties, when you attack a location, what you are given is this political screen, basically, where you're determining who's going to be throwing in with the attack.
Yeah.
You as your faction obviously will always be able to join because it's your ships, and so you can commit your strength. But there's two really smart things it does, both feeling a little bit board game inspired.
100%.
There's bits of I think Empire of the Sun, which is Mark Herman's game, where there's this notion that as you begin committing more resources to an attack, or you take a bigger swing, the odds of detection and the plan being given away increase. And so if you just like do a like sneak attack strike with your fleet, the other guy might not mobilize at all, and you can just clean up. But the defender still has some ability to react no matter what. So you might just want to like bring more odds in on your favor. But as you begin going around to other nobles and saying like, hey, can you join my attack? First, there is a chance that they won't. Even like loyal people. And this is where like there's a Sekigahara component being kicked in, which is a board game about the end of the civil wars in Japan that led to the Tokugawa shogunate. And that isn't a board game that's entirely about people just defecting on the day of the battle or just not showing up. There's a bit of that here too, where it's like, hey, this is one of my like vassals, but if I call them into the fight, they just might not come. And
there might be repercussions for them long term for that because it's dishonorable to do that, which we'll get into.
Yeah, but maybe that
doesn't help you today, right? Exactly. It doesn't help you on the battlefield that I can like find them afterwards or whatever.
But also, as you're making your rounds, you get a warning like with each person. Okay, if you call this person in, they're trustworthy. They're probably not going to betray you, but there's a higher detection chance if you bring this person in. So they can commit this many resources, but also there's a good chance that now the defender will be awake to it and will have more opportunities to bring in more defensive units. And I think right at this base level, the fact that any sort of military conflict is less about pure ship count than it is about like making sure your diplomacy is shored up and that you really understand who is around you and who your allies and who your potential enemies are. That immediately moves it into the realm of like sci-fi space opera that I become way more interested in, where it's like, I don't want to band select huge fleets and like send them out to go kick ass,
right.
But give me a situation where it's like, can you really trust your friends?
This is the thing that I miss a lot from the CK model when I play Stellaris. Is perfect information, or not just perfect information, but perfect control. The Paradox model of grand strategy game requires you to be able to have information at a high level about basically everything going on. We've had this conversation before many times, both on this podcast and on Three Moves Ahead, Rob, where I bemoan the fact that I know whether or not a ploy has a high chance of working, or an offer of marriage will be rejected, out the gate, blah, 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 blah. So that I've had some like about it, but basically that model requires you to have that. And then what Stellaris does is say, and you have perfect control over everything in your kind of forces, everything. You are a big blob. Whether or not you play like a big blob or not, you are functionally a big blob where everything internal to you is basically loyal. You might have citizen population units that don't perform the way you want or might riot, but your marshals are not going to turn on you. Your ships are not going to refuse orders. They're going to go where you tell them to. And that removes that part of the fantasy for me, which is I want a vassal to tell me no, and I want to be able to tell my lord no and let him go fucking hang and then chop up his territory when it all falls apart in his face. Like that's part of the cool idea of space feudalism is that sort of backstabbing. That those are what the kind of foundational texts in the genre have given us, and like you should be enabled to play that in a game that does that.
I also kind of dig that. So in the Paradox model, Casus Belli has become like kind of the key. Like, can you do this, or are you going to incur a ton of penalties? And it also has gradations of like how people are regarded, affects how like war against them is viewed. That stuff is all in play. I do feel like Star Dynasties is a little more on the nose in terms of like it's very clear in the interface where it's like, look, this is bad. On the other hand, this guy sucks, and everyone hates his fucking guts.
His guts. A lot of people have reasons, have specific, not claims on his territory, but specific claims on what they've done wrong, and that might make things a little less tenuous when you try to explain to the world why you've invaded this guy. You get to point to some noble you have whose marriage was annulled by this guy, and like, yeah, I was just writing that wrong, because there's this entire justice system built into this game, where Cado, you may have seen more of it than me at this point if you've put 5 hours in. I've only put like 3 or 4 hours in. A little bit, like basically I played through the tutorial and then kept playing that game for a little while.
Same.
So tell me if I'm missing anything here. there's a system in place in which there are things that are dishonorable to do. And if you do, is it any of them or is it just high level ones?
Any of them.
Okay. That can be, instead of thinking of it as a casus belli, think of it as like a reason, like a grievance, right? Someone can have a grievance with you. And that grievance can be their justification for doing rude shit to you, like invading you, but also like defaming you or fining you or asking your lord to fine you. And the thing that I think ends up being really interesting about that system is you can also, if you have a grievance with someone, you can kick it up the chain on your side and be like, oh, I am but a small baron, dear Duke. That motherfucker over there insulted me and my wife at a party. Could you please go deal with them?
Bro, are you still a duke?
Huh?
Are you still a duke in your game?
No, yeah, I am still a duke in my game. Yeah, I have not.
Wow, look at Archon Contreras.
Look, I didn't mean to, but the Archon, what is it called? The League? The League fell apart.
The League.
And I just became an Archon. Yeah.
Mine stayed all right. Mine
immediately erupted.
We don't like our Archon. We don't like our Archon, but it's been fine. We're holding together. We have a lot of enemies on the side waiting to chew us up, and so I think it's kind of one of those things that's like, let's just stay in this. Let's just keep this together. Anyway, the point is you can go up to your Archon or to your Duke, or depending on where you're at in this thing, and be like, can you fix this for me? And they can be like, no, which is extremely funny. When I say it, because I've done that to minor nobles who come to me with some ridiculous bullshit about some minor grievance. Like, this guy is paying for rebels on my planet to fuck me up. And I'll go, you can handle that, right?
Yeah.
Which is extremely
funny. And then
funny.
you send someone to become better friends with the person sending the rebels so that you can slide in under there later.
And that's my planet now.
Yeah, on the other hand, somebody else's vassal comes to you with a problem like that, and you're like, "Oh my god, how come?
Yeah,
how can he not be more supportive? Are you
That's
kidding?
So,
oh my god,
we would never
funding rebels.
We're a family over here.
Yeah,
you can tell because everyone in charge is my family.
All of them. Now, what happened to the people who weren't my family, whose like lands we now rule? They became part of the family. That's the beauty of what we do here. Okay, like that's now, mind you, your kids probably. I'm not even sure I'll allow you to have kids.
Oh my god!
Quick side note. So, in the world of Star Dynasties, Malthusianism is alive and well. But to be fair, it is because everyone's like living on these hostile planets that they can't continue to develop because Earth is fucking gone. But anyway, point is, this is a smart move.
It's funny.
Like mechanically,
yes.
Too many characters gets these things to rage out of control. Like. Especially because this isn't doing what Crusader Kings III is doing, where it's like, it's got a really sophisticated character generation program where it's like everyone's really distinctive and characterful. Yeah. This is CK2 like portraits. So there's a lot of like similar looking.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of people on this who are like, is that family resemblance or do you have three noses in this game?
Right. So the thing is,
or is everyone just fucking related, honestly? You know, the way these things are going right now. Like,
yeah.
It's like that. What was the Habsburg Chen or whatever?
Yeah.
Poor Habsburgs. I mean, fuck them, but
yeah,
but all like so. The thing is, in this world, not a lot of people get to have kids at all, or many kids. Nobles can. But it's bad form to have big families. And so, like, there's kind of a, like, control as to whether or not people have permission to procreate in this game.
And they might do it anyway, because you don't have control over that shit.
Yeah.
But also, you can go over that number. It's bad. Don't do it.
It's dishonorable to do that.
There's a reason.
And you could raise that number, right? You could raise that number by being rich enough, by basically being like, our faction can support more kids.
Narratively, that's what's going on. Is like if the populace sees your family get too big, they're like, yo, you're hoarding resources and we don't got those, you know?
Yes,
so
totally.
If you can like pay up, it's like, look, we're fine. We're not taking anything from y'all. Y'all can have low taxes. I'm gonna have like 10 people in my family doing a million things all over the goddamn system.
Yep. Because you can also, that's the thing, right? You can give tasks to people who are not in your council in this.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah, but they have to be family members. Right.
The other thing, which is really interesting, we should actually slow down. And there's another huge difference between this and the Paradox Grand Strategy model, which is that it's turn-based and action point-based and not real-time. And action points you get a base of 12, and then it's
Austin,
modified.
How do I get more action points? What if I want more than 12?
You got to be happy, Rob. Unfortunately, the world is on fire. You get bonus points based on how happy you are. I want to say there's maybe a couple of other things, like if you didn't spend all your points last turn, there's some percent that roll over. But there's a happiness bar that contributes a great deal of bonus points, which is so good.
Yeah.
Your Excellency, we're under attack on every front. You need to vibe.
You just gotta vibe out. Please vibe out. I know you want to change your council, but that takes 2 action points for every change on the council. I need you to just sit with them and
it also
vibe.
Tanks your fucking reputation too.
Oh yeah, totally. Well, it depends on who you're moving around in there, right? But there are people who you could fuck around with. Where it's I guess the thing I was mostly doing was moving them into better positions after people died and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like. So no one was getting screwed. They were just getting their titles were getting changed.
There's definitely so like they like when you have like an action that's gonna cause like dishonor, there's like these little red swords on things, and every time I go into the menu that has to do with the council stuff, there's like 5 red swords, which is the most I've ever seen on a single action.
Is that because like someone very important to you is on the council?
Well, they're all your family members, so yes, technically yes.
But there's like close family, and then there's like your niece's sister-in-law or whatever, and there's something good about putting people like that in power, which is it doesn't matter if you take them out of power. Whereas like if you put your mom as your admiral, I don't think as much.
Because one of the things that is dishonorable is screwing over family. Like that is part of the.
But it's 2 swords dishonorable. The one that was like 5 swords was like, don't do this. This is your wife, homie.
It's like not your fit. Don't fuck over your council members, and then don't fuck over your closer family.
Both of those. Closest. But the thing is, that's what I'm saying is, once you get into the sister-in-law shit, that stuff seems much less severe than your immediate family members who you're supposed to hold super close.
I think that's part of my current issue is that it's all very central, like very much the central family, and I haven't been able to actually annex any of I'm actually in a war with my mother-in-law right now because I had a claim to a star system that was right on the edge.
Buddy?
Yeah, right? It's very funny to be at war and sending my wife over there to be like, can you please talk to your mom?
These fucking muling brats who rule the world. Unbelievable. Anyway, so yeah, it is an action point based system where you get a turn, and a lot of the things that you do take up points that you have. I think the most points you can have is 16. And so that, you've those 16 action points. Most things take a couple of action points. A war will take a bunch because every time you request someone join, it takes action points, right? All of that setup. In fact, Rob, we didn't even get to the second part of your what's up with war now that I think about it.
Because a less interesting part, I would say.
It is, but I'm still more engaged during it than the model that is just like stuff is happening. I don't know if it's good because who knows how game balance works long term. Yeah,
so it's doing a bit of. It reminds me a little bit of the Endless Space 1.
Yeah, totally.
Where it's a little bit like you have certain tactics you can play. Where this comes into so in terms of ship combat, the ships are super interchangeable. It's rock, paper, scissors.
I love it. One of the messages I sent a friend while playing this was like, here's the actual best thing about this game. Here are, it seems, all of the ships in this game. No stupid shipbuilder, no huge tech tree. You love to see it. It's a very simple rock, paper, scissors. Big ships lose to bombers. Bombers lose to fighters. Fighters lose to big ships. Thank God.
So basically, it doesn't want you worrying about fleet composition. That's not what we're here to do. What comes into play, and fitting for a feudal game, commanders, due to ability, and I think it might also just be because, like, I'm not entirely sure how to get access to various tactics. It sort of seems like there's a bit of disposition.
I've seen it happen. I've seen yeah, it might be disposition. Yeah, I guess I don't know how they get the ones they get, but I've seen it pop up as an event that so-and-so has learned a new tactic, you know, when you advance a year or turn or whatever, you know what I mean? So there is, they continue to develop post, you know, during adulthood, not just during, you know, childhood or whatever.
And so when a battle is engaged, each commander, you see the various commands they can issue, and on turn one, they have their full deck basically that they can play. And I think once they're out of like tactics to employ, they have a really passive, like, hey, just like a 5% defense, 5% offense bonus. But you can do other things that are basically like, and I think that's just like commander ability, so it's like a default bonus. But if you have a tactic, you have something that can cause big swings in terms of effectiveness. Like a commander might like lead from the front, and yes, there's a chance that they will die. On the other hand, while they're leading from the front, everything is hitting hard. Like they're just coming straight at you. On the other hand, you could be tactically flexible, where you're kind of like trading away a lot of your risk factors for just the ability to sort of outlast whatever's being thrown at you. And so good commanders, it's not just that, like, in the Paradox model, it's like, this is a 3-star general. And so you'll kind of watch them just kind of wreck house, and there's not much that you'll be doing there. Here, there is a feeling of, oh, this commander's so good. Look at how many things they can do. And to a degree, just by virtue of having a big menu of tactics they can deploy, they can just outlast the enemy general. They will have moves they can make when the other guy doesn't. And if you sort of anticipate what the other guy might do, like if it's like in the tutorial, you're up against a guy whose main move is, I'm going to lead from the front. There's a move that's decapitate, where you just wait to see the enemy general leading that flagship, and then you just fuck him up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that stuff is like interesting. I'm curious to see if
Galactic Heroes.
You should finish Legend of Galactic Heroes. Oh, it's good. A character in a different anime reminded me of Oberstein the other day, and I was like, fuck, Legend of Galactic Heroes. It's good.
Do you remember when Young Wen Li like is this close to killing Reinhardt at the end of the first war,
yeah.
and like gets stabbed in the back?
It would have been over. It's all right there. That's how history works. It's just great men interacting. That's it. That's how history works. We all know this.
But because they discuss broader structural ideas and issues, you know,
yes.
Like it's about great men. It doesn't endorse great man theory.
That's actually the truth about that show. I agree with that. God, the thing about that, the war system is like, I'm engaged with it right now in a real way. Yeah. I don't know that it's balanced. I'm sure that within a week of this thing hitting, you know, early access, which it hits tomorrow or today, it hits today as of this, as of you listening to this. But I'm sure once it hits real people will be like, oh, just, you know, make sure you get people who do blank. And this tactic is undefeatable or whatever. Who knows, right? Like that's how this stuff works. But I am finding it like an interesting way to model this combat that feels like there's some texture to it. That feels like there is like, I can think of it in the mind's eye, which is all I ever ask for. I will say, combat has the most annoying beep sound I've ever heard in a video game when events happen in combat, and they should change that sound. That sound is brutal to my ears. I'm again, early access. I'm sure that's on the docket. But yeah, there's just a lot of interesting stuff here for what it's one of those things where even if what you set out to do is make a Crusader Kings clone, and you're a small development team, I think this is a solo dev with a handful of additional outside contract help, probably for additional art assets and things like that. So it's a small team. I think even in the process of trying to make something called a CK3 or a CK clone or something like that, you end up needing to make certain choices that will make your thing more than just that clone, because those games are very particular and have lots of little points at which the whole thing can turn and change, and the character of the game can become different. And I think that this is like such a great snapshot of that, of like, what's that look? What do you mean by that? And like, part of that is, of course, setting and tone and vibe, and the fact that this has a particular setting and is not, in line with a more traditional 4X in so many ways. But part of that really is it's all of the mechanical differences, all of the ways in which it separates itself from the rest of it. And I don't know. Well, this might be a game I play through twice and get like 2 runs in, and I go like, cool, because it does have that board game feel. That's what I do with good board games too often.
Already,
unfortunately,
I feel like I'm starting to see certain events pop up one too many times.
Totally, yes.
Specifically, the someone got drunk and made a fool ass of themselves with the exact same text happens a lot. But again,
early access at the same time, right? So like, that's the question.
I was gonna say, like, I'm sure that even early access they'll probably add more of that sort of thing to it. But what the structure that's there is actually really great for me as a person who always kind of poked in at these games and like never really stuck with any of them. I think the thing that we haven't explicitly mentioned yet about this is that you can see essentially everything, and it's a much smaller like space that you have to consider than any other of these, like especially the Paradox games, right? It's basically like if in CK3 you never, like, Ireland is the whole map. You zoom all the way out, it's just Ireland all the way down, right? Like, and so it feels immediately at that step just a little bit more understandable, even though there's plenty of areas that they keep hidden. Like, I get lots of events that are like unknown person in unknown place try to wage rebellion against unknown other person. I was like, oh shit, okay, some shit's happening over there, I guess.
I mean, stuff is definitely, as I've expanded my like territory, I've definitely realized like, oh, there is an edge to this map that is filling in with additional factions that just weren't there at the beginning, or they were there at the beginning, but they were beyond my range
of knowledge. Totally.
I'm so curious, like, what the end game of a session of this looks like in terms of map size. And again, that's another great point, is like, even if this map is as big as all of Europe in a grand strategy game or something, in something like CK, you don't see it all up front, and that immediately changes the way in which you're experiencing this game.
Totally.
You're not marrying your son off to some distant noble that is so far away that their daily actions aren't going to reverberate back in your court. You're going to marry them off to someone who you can basically see. Yeah. And that's going to have immediate consequences, which is another scale decision, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it's a smart thing, because there's a little element of like, it's a high school's worth of people that you gotta track, basically. Yes. Like, all you need to know are the clicks and like who's sitting at each other's tables, and that's it. And what you don't have is Crusader Kings III does a lot to try to like grease the skids here and help you like get rolling. But at the same time, the very first time, no matter who you are, you're like, okay, it's time to arrange a marriage. And you go, find me an eligible spouse. And 1 billion people populate that list from places that you have never heard of. And I don't mean like you don't know the family name. I mean like it's a part of the world where you do not even recognize like the regional name, where you're like, where is that? Boy, those are great stats, but where are you from? And then you're like, I can't pass on those stats. And the next thing you know, like, you're obligated to go find a war. Like, you're on New Island, and it's like, all right, you've been summoned to this fight in Asia Minor, and you're like, okay, so we gotta. Do we walk to Turkey?
we gotta walk. I think so.
I
don't know. It'll be cool. It'll be like a road trip. You know, we'll just pass down through the continent. We'll get some snacks.
You know, we could just get on a boat though, and that'd be faster. What could happen on a boat? It's probably safer than walking.
It's probably safe. Yeah, just put all our food on the boat. It'll be fine.
Yeah. So I mean, you don't have that problem either, where it's like even small decisions that are just part of the flow of the game, where it's like, okay, time to arrange on the marriage, time to, see about like bolstering an alliance or something. You don't have a ton of like noise in the signal where you're like, who is relevant to my game, the part of the world that I am in who is relevant to it. Star Dynasties, it's all pretty relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally. And it definitely feels like if I would recommend this to people who have always thought they might like these sorts of games but felt intimidated by the scale of it all. I feel like this does a really good job of like having a good introductory scale and possibly expanding, because I definitely noticed little gray blobs start to pop up on the very edges of things. So I'm not sure, how far it can
I just gotta know
but
something.
It's very smart.
How did we wind up at Archon Contreras?
No, I do. Yeah, I do.
Look, it was an accident. I was just minding my own business. I was
Richard III. Oh my God, you guys! I just had no idea. Oh, where are those kids at? Where are those kids?
Archon Contreras. It was literally like I didn't force this. It happened on its own organically, but everyone else could. Yeah, everyone else.
Still right.
Because what I did was I was like expanding my specific I forget what it's called. Okay, where they're leagues,
Dominion?
And then the next step down is a faction. Then the next step down is what's the bottom step?
It's just a planet, right? It's a colony.
Is it
right?
just a colony?
Isn't the smallest thing
then,
just you own one thing?
Yeah. So my faction was like growing pretty sizably. The league that I was a part of, I was now bigger than the rest of the league.
Okay.
Which was
Were
great.
you bigger than the faction or the immediate fleets and stuff that the Archon had?
I don't know, because we never got that far. I was planning. I was like, nobody likes this Archon. I'm sure that I can convince some people to kind of take it over. And then someone who I didn't know, it was like an unknown so-and-so from this thing on the other edge, on the other side of your Archon, came in and like killed the fucking Archon, which instead of it being like, okay, they now own that one system and then maybe try to claim the rest of the league, it
just shattered
the whole league. And suddenly
I did that to someone else. But I think I did it by wounding or like by taking the capital of an opposing league. So I think that's the thing, is if you take that capital, shit's done.
It's gone. So then my pretty sizable faction became a league of its own.
Wait.
God damn it.
Okay.
You're crying in Star Dynasties.
Which was interesting, because then immediately 3 or 4 people came to me and were like, yo, you want me to be your vassal? I'll be your vassal. And it just happened because I happened to be the biggest one.
Right, because the alternative is that you might crush them.
Yeah, right? Like, it was great. Hey, it was a great motive of them.
I like you.
Yeah,
it was kind of like how I ended up taking all those kids' lunch money.
Yeah, it's just like that, Rob. Tell yourself that.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, I wasn't even trying for their lands, their planets and such.
No, when people come to you asking for succor, like, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah. It would be dishonorable to turn them away.
There was one moment.
You have to extend your flag.
There was one moment where someone did some wild shit and I lost a planet to an opposing league, and I don't know how still. One of my vassals was like, yo, I want this place. And I was like, you know what? You've been good to me. I want to curry your favor more. Sure. That's fine. It's right on the edge between me and this other league. And they're having some trouble.
It seems to be still true. It's just now it's on the other side of the edge.
Somehow.
Wait, they took it. Your vassal took it.
And then the vassal gave it away to a different league.
Whoa.
Whoa. Okay, hold on.
Oh,
was this like a three-party trade?
Yeah.
Like
holy shit.
I was like,
I wonder if there was a.
You know what? I could use
against this person.
Here's what it really was. It was like I could use a little bit of money. So sure, I click the like 30 gold things. Like you can have it for $30, and they're like, great, perfect. I was thinking they're still gonna be my vassal, right? Like that planet will still.
Were they in that moment when you? Yes. Did they?
They were my vassal.
They did.
And then they didn't unbecome my vassal, but they gave that planet that I gave them to someone else. and left
who is not part of
my league.
That's a little thing we like to call arbitrage, Cado. See, that vassal was like, look, they're not going to get anywhere if they're just trying to grow their empire directly. Yep. They did a clever little move where it's like, hey, I want that like really softly protected planet. I'm just going to take it.
Look,
and they turned around, they flipped that shit. They were just like, they spruced that colony up, and they're like, hey, you want this new position?
They went in, they painted the walls, they bought some new appliances in there, they made it look a little nicer than it looks. Maybe new counters. New counters can completely change the atmosphere of a whole space colony. And flip that shit. They probably got 60 for it. You got 30, they got 60.
I'm terrified right now because the Duke of that place that made the original request is the brother of the original Archon.
Oh, you're done. You're done.
Shit splintered.
You're done.
Shit splintered, and there was a fight over his shit. There was a fight over his shit between me and that other league, right? The other league. I ended up winning and like taking them back in, and now it feels like he's absolutely fucking about to just like jump ship to this other league in like 2 or 3 turns, and then they will be bigger than me, and I'm fucking terrified.
Throwing a feast in his honor.
Yeah, I actually
about 30 gold, by the way. Yeah. So that would mean that the money he got from him for the planet he flipped would immediately go into a feast to make him feel better. That guy's having the fucking time of his life.
We appreciate you.
Alternatively, why don't you just kill him?
I might
invite him. We're just like,
hey, Cado, I think you have to, because I haven't pressed the assassinate button yet. I don't know what happened.
Someone has to.
Yeah. You gotta find out.
We gotta find out how that goes.
No, I've been too busy on. This is the issue. That's to my north, and I'm like not paying attention up there because to my south is where my mother-in-law is. And I thought, look, we were on friendly terms. Tell me
about it, buddy.
We were on friendly terms. We liked each other. They were in their own league, and I was like, look, shit is breaking up. Leagues are dissipating.
We're moving into a new era of Star Dynasties in a way.
Let's keep it in the family. This is like the chance. It tells you chances in this game. It's like.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of it's one of 3 things. It's either will absolutely not, will do it absolutely, or the middle one, which is the worst one of all, just maybe, right? So I had a maybe on they'll hand over this colony to me because we're friendly, we're family. But the the thing I didn't realize is that if they refuse, we go to war. Just immediately, and just from me asking for this planet, I got launched into a fucking war with my mother-in-law, where now I'm simultaneously spying on their capital city and have my wife over there trying to smooth things over with in-laws, you know? So
that's just how families are.
Right, exactly.
Honestly. That's just... You're like, I'm sorry. I thought all I said was it would be nice if. And hon, can you talk to your mom? I feel like it just every time we talk to each other, it's like there's diplomatic repercussions that
we're just talking past each other. I think, hon. I think it's like maybe it's generational. I think maybe she just comes from a different generation. I'm a little more forthright. Maybe in her day, you had to like talk around wanting the planet, but you know,
so
times are tough. We should just say what we want.
What's great is that
talk to her. I would if I could, but I would be shot down at the picket line. However, I don't think they'll shoot you. They might. I probably won't.
What I really love
arrest you, but you know who hasn't been arrested? Have you gotten the thing? Have you gotten the thing where? So my life was.
Here's the thing.
I forget what.
I'm still at war with that. I was still at war with them until this morning when I logged on for like 30 minutes. And I realized I had accidentally, at some point, taken a rest of my father-in-law.
You keep... Cado, this only works once. You don't get to say, I accidentally became Archon, I accidentally arrested my father-in-law, I accidentally went to war with my mother-in-law over a planet.
If a spy gets found out, they're just immediately arrested. I didn't click a button that says arrest that motherfucker. Right? It was just he's sneaking around here. Who ended up
arrested?
Huh?
Who ended up arrested?
My father-in-law.
Who was spying on you.
Who was spying on me. for my mother-in-law.
Yeah, of course.
So he was doing the thing where he was like, "No, sweetie, we're gonna smooth this over. I'm gonna come over and like
we're gonna talk to man to
behind
man.
the picket line. She would be here if she could, but I'm here to talk to you guys. You know what? I'm gonna talk to your husband. We're gonna put this together.
We're gonna work it out.
Oh, and it's just
put him in the fucking brig.
It's fucking
you
great.
find him at your computer like
turn.
in the evening, just like with the browser open, the history pulled up, your bank info is open. You're like, did you use my saved passwords? These computers.
Are you buying a planet? What are you doing? Stop it.
And then so the beautiful thing about this is that there's an option, or every turn after you hit end turn, all of the other people take their turns, right? Every single time I hit end turn, one of the first events that popped up was my mother-in-law being like, "Hey, can I get my husband back?"
Oh my god.
One of the options in there was like, "Sure, if we make peace, if we stop this war." I did, and she refused every single time. I love about these decisions is that it's on the button. It says like maybe. When it says maybe, afterwards it gives you a fucking breakdown of like why you ended up in the negative, basically. So you can kind of push back on the systems after that and be like, okay, I have to do XYZ thing to kind of curry favor. And it like lists specific grievances and shit. I forget exactly what it was, but like it was multiple turns of her coming to me being like, "Hey, would love my husband back," and me being like, "Yeah, I would love this war to end. I would love us to be, I'll give you your husband back, but he's chilling over here for some crime. So, I got to talk to the fucking police commissioner. It's a whole fucking thing. There's paperwork to be done."
So here's a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think she might be more amenable to just getting him back and like making peace if, for instance, he and you learned what the nerve whip did?
Actually,
speaking of buttons,
yes, I know for a fact.
But
I know for a fact.
I was like, boy, why would I want a nerve whip? This kind of seems like a situation where a nerve whip might be handy.
It was. So what ended up happening? Look.
It was.
Look, so here's the thing. I accidentally nerve whipped someone.
Yeah. I was just clicking buttons and I said Nerf whip, and they heard nerve whip.
I
was just, I thought it'd be funny if you took like a Nerf gun and whipped someone.
Pistol whip with a Nerf gun probably still hurts.
With a Nerf gun, yeah, probably still hurts.
I ended up, after a bunch of turns of currying favor and getting closer and closer to just being able to make peace when she made the request of me, I ended up finding through a menu that I wasn't aware of. By clicking on her, like you can get different actions depending on what like character you're like, where you're clicking basically. Like if you right click on like the like faction name, you get a different set of actions than if you right click on the person themselves, right? It's like different levels of what you're gonna do. And one of them I realized actually a couple turns in was, I have 100% chance to stop this war if I threaten to kill my father-in-law. So after years, I think each turn technically is like 1 or 2 years, right? Of this war just kind of like endlessly going on, and her being like, please, and it'd be like, you can have him back if we stop the war, or I'm gonna kill him, or he's going to die. So really, it's a win-win here if we both end this war finally.
Look, why should the nobles who started this not know the dread of losing a loved one that their own people have to live with every day this war continues?
Yeah.
Damn. True. Skin in the game.
Right.
Husband in the game.
Probably shouldn't have sent your husband as your spy master,
Yeah.
If you weren't ready for this sort of shit.
I was doing that with my wife at one point, and it was like, do you want her to go, or do you want her to send her agents and work from here? And I was like, I guess I wanted to work from here. That seems safer. And the next turn, I found out that she was having an affair with my brother-in-law. Not my brother-in-law, no, my daughter's brother-in-law, like some not directly related to her person. It was like my nephew-in-law or whatever. And that was Like, damn, I should have sent her away. I just would. That would have kept happening. I just never would have found out about it. I'd be happier. I wouldn't have this. I wouldn't have this blackmail.
This game definitely has a bias toward like, look, we all just get along. Does anyone benefit from discussing this in the open?
Bring this into the exactly.
We're space nobles. Come on.
Let's just solve this internally. It's fine.
Just keep that secret.
It's very good. So there you go. Star Dynasties. Cado, do you have another thought?
I just remembered another small detail about this fucking war with my mother-in-law is that sometime in the middle of it, I fell in love with my mother-in-law, which is
what small detail?
Which tanked my fucking happiness because I was in an unhappy marriage.
Which you can't do any action.
I couldn't do any. I was literally spending each turn being like, well, I guess I'll assign one person to a thing and then hope for the best in the middle.
How did you forget this?
Oh my god.
What? Oh, you have to end this war.
Yeah.
And also,
all right, I'm a little. Look,
what was
these are, I need to know for gameplay reasons. How May December was this romance?
I didn't go anywhere because I couldn't, because we were at war. There's the other thing. It was definitely.
This was not, when you say you fell in love, you mean a unilateral.
Yeah.
You fell into an unrequited love.
Which is why it tanked my happiness, because it was unrequited.
Did you try to requite it? Did you right click and say?
Yeah, there was the option, but it was grayed out because we were at war.
This is just like Legend of Galactic Heroes, man.
You need to stop fighting your mother-in-law and make this happen. We have to. I feel like resolution is very close. Was the message when you got what was the thing that was like so in the past when my characters are falling in love, it's like you see them from across the ballroom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're at some event and they've taken your heart.
It was absolutely
what
that.
What was the moment?
It was that. We got invited to.
She was there at a function.
There was a third. There's a third Archon off to the east that invited us both to a fucking tournament. To a feast with a tournament at the fucking tournament. I fall in love with her and just can't do any, which is why this war honestly dragged down so long. She knows what she's doing.
She was like, I'm gonna look fine.
Right.
I'm gonna put all my best shit on. I'm gonna do my makeup right. That motherfucker's gonna fall in love with me, and then he's gonna be so sad when I don't return his letters. And then we're gonna win this fucking war.
It was rough. It was rough.
Good. This is the shit.
Yeah,
this is the shit you want.
No, it was fucking great.
I simply want to play games where, as a space noble, I go to another planet space tournament, fall in love with my mother-in-law who's at war with me,
and then be unable to just like fall into a deep depression and be unable to win this war.
What's better than this?
Yeah.
God.
No, that's right. That's right, because you're losing action points.
Yes,
you're
right. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the highest level intelligence warfare we've ever seen.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Oh.
And the fact that it comes back around to like a resolution with her husband, like the whole thing is predicated like
Sir, we
it's
need
like you got
honeypotted
honeypotted by Maria Theresa. It's unbelievable.
There were shots fired in this war, but none of them mattered. It was all the fucking political shit around it that actually ended up changing the outcome of this war.
Right, of course.
Which is beautiful, which is a beautiful thing.
You can't make it to the war room because you're too busy sending her pleading face emoji. Ma'am.
Please. Ma'am.
Ma'am. Oh, god damn.
So anyway, this game was pretty fucking good.
How's your mom look? So what'd she say about me?
Oh, fuck. God damn it.
Anyway,
it was absolutely
Star Dynasties.
Well, it's great. It's great. I don't even know what systems are pushing against each other. But it was absolutely after the like 5th year of her asking for her husband back that I fell out of love and was able to do actions again. It's just beautiful. Just
5 years of wanting your husband back, you start to feel like maybe it's not going to happen for you two.
Did you arrest her husband before or after you fell in love with her? I really gotta know.
I don't remember. Oh, fuck. Was that after the tournament?
I really, this is the difference between tragedy. This is the difference between being a tragic hero and an outright villain is because if you fell in love with her at the tournament and then I think it was a year later her husband came through and you were like, well, homie, let's see. You live here now in this closet.
Oh no, I think it happened the other way around, which is weird. But also, I guess it's like where you see the like, oh, but there's a chance. Is there? No, well, but you might think there is because there's a.
Because her husband is in your jail, in your fucking dungeon, your space dungeon.
Archon Couture is just making the ultimate heat check. Just like... Look, I know it sounds like it would be a difficult relationship to make work, but I think I can pull this off. Between my dungeon, my neural whip, and my fleet and my many vassals, I am pretty sure I could make this affair happen.
It's fucked up too because it counts it as incest, even though we're not related by blood. But that also gives you dishonor. So it's like fair. Even if you go through with it,
I think it's fair, Cado. Yeah. It's because it doesn't say the little two red swords is not incest. It's don't sleep with your family.
Your kin, yeah.
With your kin.
Yeah, for sure.
She's kin at this point.
I didn't say it was unfair. I was just saying it's fucked up.
You were just rules lawyering the honor system in this game.
For my Archon to be in that position. Couldn't do shit about it.
The heart wants what it wants.
I guess so.
And my heart wants the mother-in-law I'm at war with.
Fuck.
The mother-in-law I'm at war with is definitely the name of the romance novel set in this universe. God. We should take a break. That's about as positive as a segment on Star Dynasties as I could have imagined. Thank you, Cado, for bringing the fucking heat on this one.
Oh.
God damn. All right, let's take a quick break. All right, we are back. We are going to dip into the question bucket. If you have an email, you can send it to gaming@vice.com. This comes in from Brendan. If I was going to get into Stalker, where should I start? Good question.
Yeah, same.
So I was talking about this on Twitter the other day.
Yeah.
I think as I was talking to Dia, so the question is a little bit complicated, but I think it breaks down two directions. Shadow of Chernobyl is the first game. It requires modding to be worth playing. And there's a few different total conversion mods that are out there that are probably worth checking out. So like there's a little bit like decision making you have to do if you're going to go that route. Here's the other thing. It has probably the highest highs in the series, the most iconic moments. But there's also a really long linear third act that loses a lot of what's great about that game. And it can be a little bit obscure, like what it's asking you to do. It can be a very frustrating game in some ways. Call of Pripyat is the last game in the series and is probably the best standalone game of the bunch. It is the most seamlessly open world. And if you play them, you'd get what I mean. It's the first two games are very much like go to this new tiny little hub. Call of Pripyat feels much more expansive and it's much more self-contained in some ways as well. Like Call of Pripyat is basically you are being sent in as like a Spetsnaz commando and you're just going to go in on this mission to sort out some business in the zone. It goes bad from the jump, and it's basically a Far Cry game. But if like Far Cry games were good. So like you're just a lone actor now in this strange alien war zone, and it works the best out of the box. Probably has like the best loops. It's sort of the most developed Stalker game in some ways. But what you're not going to get are quite as many of those like astonishing authored moments that you find in Shadow of Chernobyl. And that's your trade-off. If I were like My experience with Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl was incredibly special to me, and like one of the most impactful things that I had happen. But if I were to tell you, like, go play Shadow of Chernobyl, that's me trying to get you to recreate my experience in some ways. And I'm not sure it's the best advice. Because when I played it, it was the only game in town.
Right.
I think the advice I would give now is like, look, Shadow of Chernobyl just kind of, Call of Pripyat just kind of works.
Yeah.
I would go with that. And
that way you're not getting into that second step of like, do I want the complete mod? Do I want to look at Anomaly, which completely meshes things together? Yeah, I think Call of Pripyat is the one. I guess that's not true. It's the one that what's the second one called? What's the middle one? What's the
Clear Sky, which is unfairly maligned.
Yeah. Maybe I did play Call of Pripyat last then. I'm trying to remember. In any case, I think it was Call of Pripyat. And that was the thing that pushed me over the edge, was very much just like, I want to just play this game. I don't want to make big picture choices about game balance and, whether or not I download texture packs for stuff. I want it to basically look the way it looked then, but okay on my widescreen monitor. And that was kind of it, and had a good time. So
is the issue with Chernobyl, Shadow of Chernobyl, mostly visual, or is it also like there's mechanical issues with it?
Both. Like Shadow of Chernobyl was made on older graphics tech, so like the weird thing is Clear Sky out of the box was a much more like graphically sophisticated and attractive looking game. Shadow of Chernobyl did not look like that, but with mods you could make it look pretty damn close. Right. And so you can mod it to look aesthetically gorgeous, but also out of the box, huge amounts of Shadow of Chernobyl just were kind of janky and didn't work well. And so there have been a lot of mods to fix things, but you end up, and Austin alluded to this, you end up with a lot of doctrinal, near religious strife among the like various total maybe it has converged since then, but like last I checked, there were Stalker Complete, I want to say, was like the easiest and smoothest like newbie onboarding game. There was a long-standing mod effort to basically like turn the faction system that existed in the game as kind of a half-developed feature that they did more with in Clear Sky. There was an attempt to try and make that a viable in-game like ecosystem. But at that point, you're substantially changing the game.
Right.
And so you run into that with Shadow of Chernobyl, where like you're not very far down the modding route before you start running into major questions about like, hey, what is this game and what was it supposed to be? And that can be a little bit murky as well.
Totally.
I
hope that helps. Oh, go ahead, Cado.
Well, I should say I put 7 hours at some point in my life into Shadow of Chernobyl, and I don't remember how, but I'm like hearing the I feel like the way you talk about the highs in that game, I almost kind of want to go through it just to see if those exist. Yeah.
The thing is, its first 4 hours are just brutal. Like its first 4 hours are just, you're a dude. Here is a dog shit Tokarev pistol, and not enough ammo for it. And I can't remember what order this is in. First, it's like go through this tunnel with this haunted tunnel, basically with an electricity anomaly.
First, and it's far away. Yeah,
yeah. And then the first combat sequence you get, it's like, hey, go clear this warehouse of bandits. In any other game, this is easy. In Stalker, because Stalker is a gun guy.
I didn't even get past the fucking fence. I didn't even get past the fence.
Because you're like, you roll in there with a bunch of guys, but all of you have these like ancient military like handguns. And some of the dudes you're up against, like, yeah, most of them only have like handguns and like sawed-offs. But like one of them might have like a cut down AK-74 or something like that.
And that changes the entire fight.
Yeah. And so you're trying to plink dudes from like 20 yards away because they're acing you from like 20, 30 yards out.
Fuck.
And your gun doesn't do anything at that range.
Yeah. Okay.
So your first 4 or several hours in now having gone through the crucible of Stalker, I'm saying all this and I'm like, it's incredible. Yeah. Like I've never been more alive than just like ninjaing through that warehouse.
Right.
But if you haven't internalized how the game's tactics really work and where it's going to be unforgiving and where it's going to be a little bit loose, it's a lot of painful trial and error.
Totally. It's really good though. So I'm with you. I feel like part of me just wants to say like, just play the first one, even though it's a pain to get going. All right. Next question comes in from, I'll just read the whole thing. I've listened to your podcast for a while, and I'm hoping you can help me. I'm a queer lady playwright, and I've recently had the opportunity to write for 2 different video game studios. One small and cool, one very big and now famous for being not cool. I can't say much about studios or games because of NDAs, but I've hit a weird phenomenon in both of these gigs. I wanted to ask y'all if you'd seen this before. So what's happened both times is I get hired to write for a game. I don't really get much direction up front about what the client wants in terms of tone or content, but as I'm writing it, the feedback that I get is generally positive. The people who hired me say nice things about what I'm doing, and I feel good. Then, usually about a month in, I get the boot, really unceremoniously, and the people who hired me never really tell me why or give me a chance to fix it before letting me go. I slink away and wait for the final invoices to come through, and then it happens again. I don't know if the studios use my work after firing me, but either way, my ego is definitely bruised. In theater, if a writer gets fired, it's usually for something big. So, I guess my question is, do video game studios really go through writers like Kleenex as an industry norm, or is this something I've been doing, unknowingly? Is it normal for game studios to not tell writers what they want at virtually any stage? Seinfeld voice, what's the deal with this? I feel like I keep getting the boot with no direction about how to course correct. Are there studios that are known for being good to their writers? And what do y'all think I can do to avoid having this happen again? Thanks in advance, Wounded Playwright's Ego. This seems bad and also not that surprising for this industry. The industry is so big that it's hard to paint with the broad brush, and I've heard experiences from writers ranging from disastrous and deeply, dehumanizing to being really respected and being part of a core team that helps lead the direction of a game. What I will say is fundamental. If I had to say like what is true about video games and writers, it's that writers tend to be devalued because of formal reasons more than like judgment reasons or active prioritization. It's a knock-on effect of writing being secondary to design, and both of those things being somehow leashed or fenced in by technology and also by quote unquote the market and what a sales or a marketing team might advocate for. So I would start by saying your story does not sound I doubt it's something you did specifically separate from, whatever the individual projects were. This does not sound unlike other stories I've heard in this fucking industry. I guess that is what I would say is like inside of the bracketed space of, does this sound like a thing that would happen to a writer who did not fuck up in a major way? Yeah, sure. Yeah, totally. Especially as a queer lady who's in this space. Like there's all sorts of bias at play here in terms of who gets cut and who stays on. So I definitely think that's a complete possibility. I'm curious if people have action though, or have next step type advice here. Cado, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say that it also especially at a bigger place, I've like heard that it can, like, you'll get good feedback from your direct superiors, but then the actual people in charge will not get a look at it until probably much further than they should have, right? Like they should, like top leadership should probably be bought in much earlier when you're talking about hiring and firing people. But for some reason, given how many things that they're like in control over and like their time and stuff, like they tend to not for some like. It's kind of a weird setup that I've heard from multiple people who work at kind of bigger studios that I know, where like they'll work for months on a thing and then like get approvals from their boss, but then once it gets shot up to the next boss's tier, they have to scrap everything and start over.
Because someone had an idea to change X to Y, or didn't think it was going to be X to begin with, had always been imagining it as Y. Sees the first steps down the X path and is like, what is this? This isn't what we agreed to.
Right.
Because there wasn't an alignment early enough on. Right.
Totally. Yeah.
I would also just throw out there, I don't know how it is at some studios, but I do know that there is, because you have a high turnover industry and a lot of people do not stay at the same place for extended periods, you have a mentorship problem, and that eventually turns into a leadership problem and a management problem. And so I think, to an extent, for all I know, there might be something you're doing, and in a normal functional place, people would be able to say, like, hey, here's what's going on. Could be what Cado alluded to, where it's like, so I gave you these directions, you wrote to spec, and now somebody else has seen what's up, they don't like it, and I'm just going to quietly back away from all of this and leave you twisting, which is kind of a gutless move, but one I can imagine happening. But the other thing is, when you don't have like a culture of good mentorship and training and ability to learn how to process conflicts, it's real easy for people to get really conflict avoidant and really uncommunicative, especially with contract workers that you don't have. Like, it's not like a full-time employee where like a hiring and firing decision is a major decision. Contractors, to a degree, are more disposable. That's part of the appeal of the model for an employer. And so, like, it isn't hard for me to imagine that there are people just not providing feedback, because that sounds like a bummer. I don't want to give negative feedback.
Yep. Which brings me to the thing I was going to say is, like, you're super within your rights to email the person who was your direct supervisor and say, hey, what happened here? Can I get like, I'm not asking for a lot of time, but I would love a postmortem on this so that I can, ensure that future contract work that I do goes more steadily. Be professional about it, but like you can make that demand. In fact, one of the things that's worth saying is that, like, as you're negotiating contracts for work like this, it is possible in that period, in my experience, to say, hey, I would really love to just get it in writing that, like, if I'm being let go for something, that there's some sort of explanation for why that is. Like, this is for hire work. I know that, like, you're going to, who knows, the project could get canceled. Someone could come in and say, we're going to toss all the contract writers, whatever. But I would love to, I would like to be able to at least talk to someone about that process when that happens. And so it doesn't happen unceremoniously. Also, make sure you get like a good kill fee rate just in case, because if you had gotten this contract hoping that it would be 6 months of work and then it was a month of work, you should make sure they pay you for like 3 or 4 months of work. And if they refuse, then like you can start negotiating around that. And maybe they talk you down to 2 months or something. But if they're going to let you go from a project that was supposed to last you many months, you are within your rights to negotiate for some sort of kill fee up front, so that when that happens, you'll get paid still, but 2, they will be less likely to cut and run on you because they'll have to pay you for some of it. Don't be afraid to negotiate for yourself. These companies, especially the big company you talked about, I don't know that company is. That was not me. I don't actually know. It turns out there's lots of big companies who are bad. But they have more money than they know what to fucking do with sometimes. It's just that they don't give it to their workers. And so there is you should be willing to advocate for yourself in that way. And if they're confident in the project, they should not mind setting up a kill fee, because that is one of the things that's like a industry standard or that's a industry standard in the world of writing, at least. And when you position yourself in that way and you demand they take you seriously, there are ways in which you end up with a sort of kind of societal leverage to have that when you have that conversation. Again, I'm talking about in my experience, I'm a dude, I'm a queer black dude, so I'm also marginalized in certain ways in these conversations. So I do understand the fear of being like, well, what if this person just says, no, that's not how it works here? But it's better. I really believe, and again, this is about my experience doing work with games writing, to have that conversation up front and to advocate for yourself as strongly as you can, because the chances are, in the moment they want to hire you, they want to hire you and they want to work with you. And if you're advocating for yourself in a reasonable way, they're probably going to try to make something happen towards giving you the terms you want, because they want you to be happy and they want you to do good work for them. So
that's your max leverage moment too.
Yes,
like
100%.
Because that's partly just practical. Like they're also, one of the reasons they're hiring you is so they don't have to worry about this part of the job quite as much.
Yes.
And so like this is the moment where their attention is on you and they just kind of want to get you work for them. And so like, don't fall into the trap of thinking like, well, no, I'll do good work and then I'll prove myself and then we can discuss this. No, it's got to happen right then for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
And one of them is just at that moment they care more. And in 3 weeks, it's like, cool, writing, check. On to how are the graphics on level 3?
Yeah. I've absolutely seen that mindset of like, yeah, I'm gonna get in there. It's just a temp job, but if I do good enough work, I'll definitely get hired. When there's like never been a mention of that being a path to full employment. And it's just like, if they don't say it, do not expect it. It will not be the thing on their mind. Basically, ever for contract work, you know.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I have this is a weird one. I'm gonna read it and just urgent question from Jeverage in Canada. How do you eat bread? Hello, Waypoint friend. I want to quickly define terms first. Let's imagine a slice of bread. I'm talking regular ass supermarket Wonder Bread or whatever. It's like a house, right? The bottom is a flat edge and the top is like a roof looking part that's curved.
Yeah.
Cool? Same page? Okay. If you're eating a whole uncut sandwich or a single slice of bread or anything like that, do you start from the bottom or the top? Now this next bit is bolded. I have always started from the bottom. One day a few years ago, I noticed my partner at the time eating a sandwich and starting from the top. I commented on it, and she looked at me like I was a ghost. I've since asked family, and they all agree that I'm in the wrong. Please defend or attack me. P.S. I'm no longer in that relationship, but I promise the breakup was almost entirely unrelated to bread.
Hang on.
Yeah.
So neither?
Uncut sandwich.
Okay.
Ooh, this is where I'm taking issue. Who the fuck doesn't cut a sandwich? You cut that shit diagonally. I will never. Never.
I prefer to.
Who the fuck doesn't
Who the fuck doesn't cut it in the middle? You cut it if you're doing a Wonder Bread ass sandwich.
Triangles.
Because you don't want to start with crust. You want to start at the middle where the good shit is.
You could do a middle cut where you end up with just like a squared off line that you're biting into.
That's fine, I guess, but you get
you're also biting into a line if it's an angle.
Right. But the line doesn't have crust on it. This is the important part. You don't start from the bottom or the top.
Because the key for you is you don't want to bite into crust.
The crust is at the end. The crust is kind of like a treat. What's the not aperitif? That's not before. No. The one that's after. Yeah, a digestif.
A digestif. Yeah,
100%.
It helps you digest the rest of the bread. Your system.
It's got a little bit of fiber in it, you know. It's
yeah, but if you do it the way Jeverage does it, you get a little bit front, and it's like it's built. It's setting you up.
Then it's
it's starting the engine.
Yeah.
You get it as both though. Rob is very distraught.
I can't imagine the bottom or the top of a slice of supermarket bread is not a thing that's ever registered to me as a point to consider.
The top is wider. So you think about this.
Not really.
Yeah. Well, look, hold on.
Only in the way in which no one's ever drawn a circle or no square created by man is actually, I'm
drawing something.
You don't have a camera on.
I don't. I'm going to take a picture and send it. This is taking longer than I thought it would. I made a drawing. The top of a bread is wider. Here in the Discord.
Bread diagram.
Well, that could be because of the bread pan. Some of them do mushroom over the top. Yes. Some are baked in the pan. They just create a
Wonder. This is Jever specifically said Wonder Bread, store-bought Wonder Bread, which always does this thing, right? The top is wider.
Wonder Bread.
Right?
1 second. I'm going to get a photo of Wonder Bread. I don't know that it actually is wider, Cado. I actually think this is an optical illusion.
That's a dramatized Wonder Bread slice.
If you start biting at the top, you're going to end up with the two little muffin top edges.
He DM'd it to me and only to me.
God damn it. I thought that was the group
Perhaps
chat.
because I was the one who expressed out.
I don't think this is true. This is the thing, Cado. You're getting gamed.
No. What?
Yeah, I'm looking at real photos of Wonder Bread as we speak.
Wonder Bread.
Rob seems to have left. Look at it. Actually look at it. Open it up in MS Paint. Get a line.
No, you're right.
It's widest in the middle, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe. It's hard to say. Maybe it is a little bit.
Here's the thing.
Okay.
Look, if you take a bite out of
Rob,
the top.
thank you for coming back with bread.
If you take a bite out of the top of a piece of Wonder Bread,
12 seed bread loaf.
That's a good bread. That's a nice bread. I haven't been to a Wegmans in a minute. They don't do that here.
We got one recently in Brooklyn.
Oh, do you have a Wegmans down there?
There's a Wegmans near the Navy Yards, apparently.
They just opened one like it was a madhouse.
Why? Okay, what? I like a Wegmans, but it's not all that.
Yeah, I know. But people
in Brooklyn, it would be, though, right? Because there's not that many big supermarkets.
I guess that's true.
But you don't need big supermarkets when you got little supermarkets. That doesn't count. What is this?
It's a supermarket bread loaf, Cado. You can't tell me it doesn't fucking count. So you'll note it tapers a bit in the middle, but fundamentally, the bottom and the top are the same width. In fact, it might even be a little wider at the bottom.
Right. No, you're right. I think here's the what I was trying to get at. I'm now opening Photoshop. Is if you take a bite, if you start at the top here, you've got those little indents at the edges, right? You end up with dangly bits on your sandwich if you start biting from the center of the top.
But who's biting from the center? Why are you biting from the center of the top?
When you don't start at the middle? That's where there's more stuff.
Not when I'm eating an uncut sandwich.
Okay, so you're saying that you...
Hold on.
No! Can you put your eye? Can you line your eye up through it like now we're fucking talking.
Oh, okay, got a screenshot of that for later.
I'm gonna tweet it right now. I'm just putting it out there.
This to me is sandwich eating.
No, you don't. Not folded, right? The point is two slices that are lined up, right?
You said from the center. Now watch. If it were to be cut in the middle, what we have is a new edge.
What he's saying is, if you unfold it, and you just go right into the mushroom top part of the uncut sandwich, then you get. I get what he's saying.
You get dangly bits.
But that's why you just come in. I'm angled. I want to come in on the side. I want to come in. I'm just going to eat a whole uncut sandwich.
Well, here's what's important. What is the sandwich of? Because
depends.
Because if you have meat, if you have rounded meat,
material point.
If you,
which is that the important part is not actually what part of the bread are we starting our consumption of the sandwich with.
No, it's just like if we're trying to answer this question, we have to understand what is within the bread, because
flour,
when you have
water.
no, in the sandwich, when you have like rounded deli cuts, right? There's corners of bread that have no meat in it, right? This is why you want to start in the center.
Rob's leaving again. Rob stepped away. I don't.
If it's a PB&J, you got the spread all the way to the corners. It's
all the way.
It's fine.
That's a good sandwich all the way.
Yeah. You can start that whenever.
Right, but you're saying that if there's a lot, see, I don't always want to just start with a big mouthful of whatever is in the sandwich. Sometimes I want to lead in. Did you get a second piece of bread, or did you just leave? No second. All right, maybe we did get a second piece of bread.
Yeah, something's
no
going
bread.
on.
Is there more bread?
No, I got some deli cuts.
Okay. Great. These are probably not going to be round, right? Just to prove.
Oh no, they're round.
I
got the Rosette de Leon salami here. Okay, so I got tiny little round
salami. Yeah. Oh, small rounds, right?
Lay it on me, Cado.
But you're gonna layer them.
Yeah. You make a sandwich, right? So look, I was saying you missed this part. We already got past this part where there's corners of bread without meat because they're rounded, right?
How little are these bites you're taking?
I don't know.
You bite in until you get to the stuff. I'm not nibbling at the corner.
I'm just saying this is why I would start at the middle, because there's going to be meat there where the corners might have a little.
I started at the middle, but you got angry.
The center of the slice, the middle of the top.
It's a circle. It's going to be there. It's not going to
be in the corners.
It's not an oval.
It's not going to. Here, I'm going to draw a bite onto this thing. Right?
Please.
This is
how. You can post it in the chat.
It's going to be a little mouse bite.
And then
I'm gonna draw I can't get through all this crust.
But your diagram is already wrong, because your diagram is a chef's hat. If I saw that diagram in a game of Pictionary, I'd be like, chef's hat. It's a chef's hat. It's what are those called?
Wow, I don't know.
I'm really excited to see whatever you fucking just show us what you drew, Cado.
I don't know what happened here, but
just show us.
This thing in the center is just fucking meat. Okay, that's what it is.
What?
It's meat.
He hasn't posted anything yet.
Here,
listener.
So I drew this the wrong way.
What the fuck? Why are you making a Hal sandwich?
Yeah, why did you put Hal in this?
I don't know. I just drew a circle with my ellipse tool.
You don't know.
I made a circle with the ellipse tool in Photoshop, and out came a Hal.
Literally, Hal 9000 is what you drew on this. And
I also drew the bite marks under the meat on accident too. But you see, where the bite marks
lines
are?
Coming out of Hal are
I think
bite mark analysis visual aids.
Yeah.
Do you understand that the amount of distance between the corners and the meat is not so great as to not be? This is not Zeno's paradox. I don't need to eat halfway and then halfway and then halfway. I'm gonna get to the meat. Let it be known.
Yeah.
Austin Walker gonna get to the meat.
You're gonna get to the meat. This is about preference. You're gonna get to the meat either way, but I would prefer to start with what I'm expecting.
Okay, but listen.
right?
Okay, wait. Here we have a perfectly. We're back to Jeverage's point or question. Here's the situation. You got yourself a sandwich. We're now looking at the diagram, Hal 9000 on a piece of Wonder Bread. Do you start from the bottom or the top? If you can't cut it, there's no knife to be found in this scenario. I don't know why. They've all been dirtied, perhaps. They're all and for whatever reason you don't feel like you have the strength you're very tired.
You're on a picnic. Here's the thing. You try to rip a sandwich in half, you're gonna get
accidentally nerve whipped. And someone slides under the dungeon door a single Hal 9000 sandwich. It's the future. That's why we're all eating robots now. And you don't have the strength to break this bread in half or to spread this sandwich apart. So you're going to have to take a bite. Do you take the bite from the top or the bottom or the sides? Or do you do a Rob Zacny, fold it, and take a bite into the middle, the center, revealing a hole?
No, I just did that out of spite.
I see. Yeah.
You wouldn't actually eat a sandwich that way.
No, I would just put another slice of bread on top, and then I would go about my day and not worry about it. One way or another, it's getting eaten.
See, I think if you start at the top, you've made a mistake structurally because of the indents and the little bits of extra bread you're gonna get.
I feel like asking the question is the mistake. I feel like when you're like, here's the thing I have passionate feelings about, and someone looks at you like you're a ghost, that might be the moment where it's like, oh, I should call those words back.
Yeah, I've opened up part of I revealed that I am a type of person that previously I'd been, but only to myself.
New type of guy just dropped.
Hey, want to hear about the only normal thing to care about?
Honey.
Look, no.
Honey, do you take a bite from the bottom of the bread?
Bread flattening.
That relationship, they look like a ghost because they disagreed, not because they thought.
I think no.
Email again.
I think Jeverage might have misinterpreted that look.
Yes.
Jeverage doesn't know why the room goes silent, and it's
I'm with
obviously
Jeverage.
they hate me because I speak the truth.
Yes. I've since asked here. I commented on it, and she looked at me like I was a ghost. I've since asked family, and they all agree that I'm in the wrong. And I think what Jeverage is in the wrong about is caring about what side is having a fight in this war.
No, Jeverage.
I think we need a follow-up from Jeverage. We need specifics.
We already got a follow-up. I'm no longer in that relationship. but I promise the breakup was almost
But our reliable narrator can tell us that it had nothing to do with that.
Oh, fuck.
Like Jeverage is in good company. Cado's like all on board with this question. You're in good company.
Right. Other people care about this. You just have to find people in your life who care the way you do about the things you love. Share your passions, your dreams, like eating a sandwich from the top. Or the bottom?
Oh, wait, no. Jeverage is top, right? No, bottom. God damn it.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Jeverage is bottom.
Okay, yeah. No, that's right. I agree.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Shout outs to Jeverage.
Shout outs to Jeverage. One final email here. This one's from Jacob in Uppsala, Sweden. I'm going to say in advance, apologies if I butcher any of these words. I'm doing my best. Hello, I'm from Sweden, and I have a theory about the 2 liters of pickles that were mentioned on the pod. As a reminder to people, someone bought 2 liters of pickles and then saw after they bought it that they were like going bad in 2 days, basically, right? Something like that. The common Swedish
Your
term
life
for
ends in 2 days.
The common Swedish term for pickle is saltgurka, which translates to salted cucumber. The term is often used both for cucumbers that are pickled with salt only and those pickled with vinegar and sugar, but this type can also be specifically called ättiksgurka or a vinegared cucumber. I believe the type of pickles the other listener's mother purchased was saltgurka. My mother comes from a part of Sweden where saltgurka is common, especially this brand commonly sold in large buckets, and we often buy some when we visit my grandparents. Since saltgurka, the plural of saltgurka, are pickled in just salt and water and not fermented, they have a fresher taste but a shorter expiration date. The high salt content also means keeping the cucumbers in the juice for too long will make them too salty. Best regards, Jacob from Uppsala.
So they're cured cucumbers.
They're cured cucumbers. Yes.
Not what we think when we say pickled.
And so this is, we also got an email from someone who said that, and maybe I'm just wrong about this. Maybe I'm just wrong about this. Al wrote in to say, I wonder if you're getting a few emails like this, but the thing I've had to clear up for myself recently, so I thought I'd share, sauerkraut is fermented cabbage. There's folks out there that do a better job of explaining the difference, but pickling and fermenting are both excellent ways of extending the life of foods that leave you with wildly different and delicious things to eat. The way I think about it might not be entirely correct, is fermenting is alive and evolves, and pickling preserves.
I thought pickling preserved through fermentation. I thought there was fermentation happening in pickling. Am I wrong about this?
No, there are fermented pickles. Those are different. They are pickles, but it's a different thing.
Pickling is the process of preserving or extending the shelf life of food by either anaerobic fermentation in brine or immersion in vinegar.
That second one. Okay. Interesting.
But that means, is sauerkraut only fermented then? It's not.
I believe pickling? So, yeah, because the taste is.
Now we're in the logic problem question. Not all.
The sour. Yeah.
Production. Sauerkraut is made by a process of pickling called lactic acid fermentation that is analogous to how traditional, not heat-treated pickled cucumbers and kimchi are made. Is kimchi?
Kimchi's fermented.
Kimchi is pickled.
Yeah.
It is. It's both. It's both, right? It's fermented and.
It is the.
Oh no! It's all pickling. We're fucking it up. We're fucking it up.
It's pickling.
I think it's all talking
pickling. About. There's a type of non-fermentation pickling.
Correct.
And then there's pickling, which encompasses multiple methods.
Yes. Right. Totally. And we think that this brand of pickles, which looks like bananas, I'm gonna post this. I'm just gonna post the image actually direct so I can get just a clear response. I can't. It's not letting. Here it goes. The 14 megabyte JPEG here, or PNG, for this kinda Gurkha brand pickle.
What?
Yeah.
What?
I don't know what's going on with
Listener,
these.
we are looking at an
unpickle.
A peeled banana. A peeled banana being passed off as a pickle.
They're calling this freshly salted cucumber. Yeah.
Okay.
This is strange. This is kinda Gurkha.se.
Is that because you pull it out, it's been so salted that, like how salt can leave like a residue that like
right.
Maybe. Because they also have different pickles here that are our traditional, what we think of as a cucumber looking thing.
Right.
So
kind of salt Gurkha.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for the pickle emails. I'm still not any closer to. I think this is probably it. I think it's probably these salt pickles that will not last long. And I wonder if by the 2-day thing it meant you got to get it out of these fucking salt water in 2 days, because otherwise these will all be over salted and taste bad.
Right. Both.
It's not that they'll go bad necessarily, but it's interesting. Anyway, thank you all for your emails. As always, you can send them to gaming@vice.com. We will be back later this week with another episode. I don't know, who knows what we'll talk about. I feel like with this track record, we could talk about anything.
Yeah.
I hope everyone has a nice week. You can find me on Twitter at Austin_Walker. You can follow everything we do. Twitter.com/waypoint, waypoint.vice.com. Where can people find you, Rob?
You can find me just putting some nice salt Gurkha on my HAL 9000 sandwich and just living my best life from any direction.
Cado, where can people find you and your mother-in-law?
At war.
Yeah, okay, good.
You know what they say is war is the closest thing.
Fucking Christ. Oh my god.
At Cado.
Yeah.
Hey, _Cado_ here.
Cado's starring in The Graduate meets Dune. That's what he's doing.
You know. Yeah, I feel like there's the energies. There's an overlap in energies in many ways there. God, I'm gonna move on before I make bad jokes. As always, thank you to Bowen for letting us use the track "Miss You" off the EP Pale Machine. Find out more about that at waypoint.zone/BOEN. That's gonna do it for us. As always, fuck capitalism. Go home. Peace.
Looked at me like I was a ghost is a real good.
It's so funny.
It's great.
So
Thank you,
it's incredible. Thank you for that, Jeffrey.